Como digo, mis expectativas, voy a subir aquí la resolución, mis expectativas son bastante bajas ahora mismo. Ya sabéis que PoE 2 para mí es un juego que está en un estado muy verde. Me aburre directamente, prefiero jugar PoE 1 o irme a la Seapoch o a otra cosa directamente, porque la verdad que PoE 2 a mí no me ha gustado. Entonces, veremos a ver cómo progresa, qué nos muestran hoy. Espero como mínimo ese nuevo capítulo, una prueba de ascendencia nueva, pero no creo que haya mucho más, no creo que nos den algo que cambie realmente mi experiencia en el juego de manera radical, como para divertirme y sentirse gratificante. Creo que ahora mismo se sienten muy rules y hay mucho trabajo detrás para cambiar eso. Entonces bueno, veremos, queda un minuto, así que me callo ya, vamos a reaccionar y todo esto, ¿vale? ¿Qué más cositas deciros? El juego sigue en Early Access, ¿vale? Seguirá en Early Access, pero vamos a ver si hoy nos cuentan algo sobre si hay fecha de cara a cuando acabe ese Early Access o algo, ¿vale? Los draws empiezan ya, gente, también. Voy a ponerlo a 1080, pero los petes son de ellos, no son míos. Vale, aquí abajo tenéis unos subtítulos que os van a servir un poquito, aquí al lado. Es la costumbre que suelo estar arriba. Aquí al lado tenéis los subtítulos, ¿vale? Que os van a ayudar un poquito a entender lo que están diciendo si el inglés no es vuestro fuerte, ¿vale? Yo más o menos iré diciendo lo más relevante, pero como quiero estar atenta, pues ahí tendréis.
I'm Jonathan Rogers from Grinding Gear Games, and welcome to GGG Live. Today we're going to show you an exclusive reveal of what's coming next for Path of Exile 2. Twitch drops are enabled on today's live stream, so you'll be able to claim your Sun Priest's Incineration rare finisher effect by following the instructions below.
Que podéis conseguir de drop, son 45 minutos y ya debería saliros por ahí.
It's time to give you a teaser of what's coming in Path of Exile 2, the Third Edict.
Primero tráiler. Karui!
I have called you here to save our people.
Acto 4.
To save our way. Over the ages, we have known pain like no other, but we endured, and we became mighty.
Rafa, gracias por ese principio.
Outsiders dishonor our shores, and we have stood by, doing nothing. Hear my voice, ancestors. Show us your strength. Show us the true.
Wow, se les traba un montón el directo. Muéstrame su fuerza. Muéstranos el verdadero camino. Bueno, esta es la historia de Latam, básicamente. Porque han dicho eso. Los forasteros de los que hablan, llegan los de Kalgur y dicen, me quedo con las riquezas de esta zona, ¿vale? Básicamente, eso es lo que hace Kingsman, coge sus barcos y empieza a ir a Islas Karui, al final acaban negociando, ¿no? Llegando a un punto medio, pero básicamente sacan todas las riquezas del archipiélago Karui para vender y hacer sus cosas los Kalgur. Ahora Ayeleth cancelada. Ah, ese boss fue el que jugué yo en la Gamescom. Estas son las nuevas. Kingsman. ¿Habrá prueba de ascendencia nueva? 3 actos interlude. 35 nuevas áreas. 24 nuevos bosses. Cambios en las gemas de soporte. Reward masivo a las habilidades. Soporta lineage, no ítem de engage, notables. ¡Sprinting! ¡Sprinting! ¡Correr, gente! ¡Que vamos a poder correr! ¡Por fin vamos a poder correr! ¡Hostia! Raisos de Abyssal. Pues sí que era Abyss, gente. Es Abyss. La liga es Abyss reworkeada. Esa va a ser la liga. Abyss Reward. Correr está sobrevalorado en 2025. Que le den a las habilidades de movimiento. Te compro el correr. Oye, yo prefiero correr a tener que ponerme siempre el flame dash. Es así. Visa, gracias por esa sub. Muchas gracias.
Now, as you
Vale,
can
a
see,
ver, había
there's a
más
lot
cosas
going on.
interesantes de las que
We
me
have a lot to
esperaba,
reveal
¿eh?
today.
Ya solo con el correr.
We'll start by going over Act 4, the next chapter in the Path of Exile 2 storyline. But that's not all.
Vale, han
There's
eliminado
also
la
3
dificultad
new
cruel.
interlude acts to get you to endgame, which means we're removing cruel
En vez
difficulty
de
2.
meter acto 1,
After
2,
that,
3
we'll be
y luego
going through the
repetir 1,
massive
2,
changes to
3,
characters.
tenemos 1,
I'm
2,
super
3,
excited to show you how
3
I've
actos
overhauled the entire
intermedios y el
support gym
acto
system,
4.
added new skills, and yes, there are
Todas las
buffs.
clases bufadas.
Next, we'll go over the Rise of the Abyssal.
Nueva
This
liga,
season's
sistema de
exclusive league
crafting,
mechanic,
bosses.
and talk about the new
Básicamente
rewards,
habéis
crafting
revolteado,
systems, areas, and bosses that it adds.
Nuevo sistema de
After
gemas de
that, it's on to
soporte.
changes we're making to the
Múltiples
endgame.
copias de la misma gema.
Then it's time to talk about items,
25
crafting,
nuevos mapas de
and oh
endgame,
yeah,
nuevo encuentro de
trade.
endgame,
That's gonna be
cambios
a
a
big one.
crafting y
We'll
trade
then go over our
asíncrono.
new
Compra
support
ítem
packs
cuando los
and finish up
vendedores
with a
están
live
offline.
Q&A session where Ziggy D will ask
Ítems.
Path
No
of
habla de
Exile 2
curas,
game
habla de
directors,
ítems, ¿eh?
myself
Trade
and Mark
asíncrono.
got questions from Twitch chat. And
Ojo,
after
ojo.
that, at 4 p.m. Pacific, hatch notes. They're
Ojo,
not
que me
quite
voy a tener que
complete,
comer mis
but they should give
palabras,
you some
¿eh?
nice details to chew on.
Hay cositas
We've got a lot to
interesantes,
cover
¿eh?
today, but first,
Lo admito.
another announcement. When the Third Edict launches on the 29th, we'll be having a free weekend for Path of Exile 2. That's
Gente,
right, Path of Exile 2 will be
Fin
free
de
for the
semana
first time without
gratuito
requiring an
de
early
Early
access key.
Access.
The
Del
free weekend
29
will
de
end
agosto
on
al 1
September
de
the
septiembre,
1st,
todo el
so you'll have
contenido
plenty of time to
disponible,
give the
el
game a
progreso
try.
se salva para cuando vuelvas
Alright,
y tanto en
let's get
PC
started
como
with
en
Act 4.
consolas. Si no tenéis,
The story
no
continues
queréis
from the
comprar
end of
Early
Act 3.
Access, el fin de
Doyani
semana
has
que
agreed
viene
to
lo
help you
tenéis
find an
gratis.
ancient weapon that can be used
Gratis, me
against
gusta esa
corruption,
palabra.
the instrument of the Third
Vale, acto
Edict.
4 tenemos a
The
Sin y
weapon was
Doyani.
broken in ages past, but he believes that the pieces may be found in the Karui archipelago, the home of the Karui tribes.
A lo que decíamos, el archipiélago Karui, por
You
fin
will need
voy
to
a poder
journey to
jugarlo
Kingsmarch.
entero.
Hire a ship
Llegué aquí,
and
cogí el
set
barquito y
sail.
me fui a una isla. Ya está, pero solo
When you
hice una
open the
isla.
map, you can choose to sail any way you like.
¿Veis? Podéis elegir
Act 4
cualquier
is
isla.
completely
Así es el
non-linear,
orden que
and you can
queráis.
visit the islands in any order you
Elegís el
choose.
puerto.
Will you visit the pristine beaches of Whakapanu Island? The Karui whisper of a curse that afflicts all who travel there. Perhaps it's related to the weapon you seek.
Maldiciones
Or
en
maybe you
algunas
will
islas.
visit the volcanic
Esta fue la
shores
isla
of
que
the
hice
Isle
yo.
of Kin. The Kin have been more restless
Esta fue la
recently,
que hice yo, la del volcán.
mining for sulfite and driven by some dark force.
Este boss.
Perhaps you will
Ese
choose to
boss fue
consult
muy
with one of the
divertido,
local
hay que
Karui
decirlo.
tribes.
Lo hice
Their
con el
ancient wisdom
druida
could hold
también,
clues to
pero el
finding the Third Edict.
druida... druida no lo han
No matter
presentado.
where you choose to go, you will fight dangerous beasts,
Con el druida fue divertido.
find fabulous treasures,
Más piratas.
and battle incredible bosses.
A challenger!
Navali.
Come, Yama sees your soul!
Sí, te trolean con Tota.
8 islands to discover, each teeming with its own flora and fauna. Act
Es el
4
mapa de
contains over
Tota, pero
100
no
new
es
monster
Tota.
types, 16 new areas, 12 new bosses, and plenty of other interesting encounters. There's a huge amount to show, but we're not
Oh,
going to
ese
spoil
boss
too
es
much here.
precioso.
We want to give you a chance to discover it all for yourself.
No van a revelar
What happens
demasiado.
after Act 4? Well, until now you had to repeat the entire campaign again before you could face the endgame. But after adding Act 4, the game is far too long to make you do that. We needed something else to do in between the end of Act 4
Después
and
de
the
agregar el
endgame.
acto 4, el juego
So
es
what else could we
demasiado
do?
largo
Add 3 new mini-acts, of course.
para
and
volver
we're
a
calling
hacerte
them the
repetir todo.
interludes.
Ah, vale, porque lo que
The
hemos
interludes
dicho,
are a
¿no?
set of 3
Que antes
temporary side
hacíamos
stories
3
that will be
actos
included in the
y
game
luego,
until
como
Act
no había
5 is
más actos,
released.
repetíamos
It
los
will
3
take you to
actos para
level
llegar al
65
nivel de
where the
endgame.
endgame can begin.
Ahora lo que han hecho es,
The first
hasta que se
interlude
lance
sends
el
you on a
acto
journey back to
5,
Ogum.
meter unos 3 mini
Renly has
actos en
been leading the
medio
efforts
entre
to
el acto
rebuild
3
Ogum
y el
Village after
acto
the defeat
4.
of Count Geonor. But there's a new danger afoot.
O después del acto 4,
The
no me
nearby town
quedó
of
claro,
Holton
pero
is
eso.
surrounded by an impenetrable darkness, and each night their corrupted townfolk
3
emerge to
mini
raid the
actos que
local
luego no estarán,
farmlands.
porque luego tendremos el acto
You will
5 y el
discover
acto
new
6.
areas.
Vale.
And new bosses.
Entre el 29 y
You'll
el 1
need to find your way through the
necesito.
darkness, uncover the source of corruption,
Soon you will serve our master.
and defeat it.
Yes, I shall dance with their corpse.
And that's just the first interlude.
Bueno, contando un poquito de
The
qué van
second
a
interlude
ir
will
los
have you
3 mini
return to the
actos
Vasteri
estos.
Desert, where Asala has been given a
Los
sacred
fans de diálogo van
duty.
a jugar y van a decir todo lo
When
malo
the
que dicen
skies
del
align,
juego.
the
Yo no
gifting of
tengo
water
razón.
requires a chosen segment
que gratis
to
lo
meet with the
pruebo.
Selkari, guardians of the sacred water. But they're nowhere to be found. You will need to track down the Selkari. Find those responsible
Bueno,
for
parecen
disrupting the
cositas que
gifting.
luego estarán metidas en la historia de otra manera,
Fight even more new bosses.
pero que ahora mismo solo sirven
Discover
para
the
rellenar
secrets
y
of
que
the
le
ancient
subamos de
ritual.
nivel. luego tendrán más sentido
discover
a
new
nivel de lore.
locations, and ultimately help Asala carry out her sacred duty. Now for Interlude 3.
Dorjani contingencia, ese es el
As royal
acto
thaumaturge of the Vaal,
intermedio
Doryani had
3.
plans within plans to save his people from the cataclysm perpetuated by Atzeri's lust for power. One such plan involved sealing a group of willing Vaal deep in the great
Doryani
mountain
tenía
vaults
planes
near the
dentro de
home of
los
the
planes para salvar a su
Asmeri, deep
pueblo.
enough to survive the cataclysm. Even though thousands of years
Uno
have
de ellos
passed,
era, pues,
he
enterrarlos
believes
por
that
ahí,
their descendants
que
may
se
still
queden
live
escondidos
and may be key to
en la
defeating the
gran
beast.
bóveda.
The journey up the mountain will be dangerous. New
Los
foes stand
descendientes
in your
aún
way,
pueden vivir y ser clave para derrotar a la bestia.
and the further up the mountain you venture, the colder
Pero
it will
tienes que viajar
become.
hasta la montaña y ver si queda alguien vivo, básicamente. Vale. Pero como
Explore
digo,
caves
son
of
cosas
ice.
que luego no va a terminar, no lo
enter the
cojamos
vault
tan
itself.
canon, porque luego, pues,
Who can
cuando
say
tengamos
what
la
you will
historia
find
bien
within?
hecha, pues esto a lo mejor es solo un
Interludes are
pequeño
6 to 7
relleno.
areas each,
Que
and
de una
generally
parte es
include 4
canon,
boss
pero
fights
no
as well.
todo.
When you put that together with Act 4, that adds up to 35 new areas in the campaign and 24 new bosses. It's worth making
Y
clear that
elaboran
the
otra vez.
interludes are temporary. When Act 5 and 6 are added, the interludes will be going away.
Bueno.
These are side stories after all. But don't worry, the bosses and areas that make up
Los
the
interludios
interlude
son
are all part of the
temporales, cuando se
endgame.
añaden los
We're not
actos
just going to
5 y
throw them
6,
away.
pues los interludios estos
And with
desaparecerán,
that,
lo que he
we
dicho,
don't
¿vale?
need
Los
cruel
3 mini
difficulty
actos
anymore.
desaparecen.
We do know that it was a pretty big chore to have to play through the campaign multiple times on each character, and this was a huge reason that the campaign could feel like a bit of a slog when playing through again. But we do also have another new feature to address that particular concern as well. So let's talk about sprinting. In 030, when you hold down the dodge roll button, your
Correr,
character will
o
go
sea, de
into a sprint
verdad,
after they
tanto
finish
les
the
ha
roll.
costado poner esto
This is
en el
available
juego,
on
o
all
sea,
character classes,
era lo único
and
que
there's no
pedíamos
limitation
el
on how long you can
desde el
sprint.
primer momento.
The primary
Poder
purpose of this
correr,
feature
o
is to
sea.
make navigating areas faster when out of combat. Because of
Es
that,
que
if
ya que
you
no
do take
teníamos
a hit while
frame
sprinting,
dash,
you'll fall to
si
the ground.
tenemos áreas tan largas,
The best
teníamos
idea is to
áreas
use a
más
skill
largas
when
que
you see
fue uno
monsters.
y
That'll
encima no
break you out
teníamos
of the sprint
habilidades
so
de
you can
movimiento,
engage
se
with no
sentían
danger.
muy rules.
If you do need to run away from
El
monsters,
correr es
just hold
verdad que va a
spacebar.
ayudar, ¿eh?
You won't be vulnerable during the roll, and you're faster while sprinting than basically any monster in the game, allowing you to retreat from combat. Sprint is a pretty significant change to
Bueno, que le
PoE2's
des el
gameplay.
espacio, sí,
What I
te
like
caes
most
y te
about it
golpean,
is that we can
exacto.
accelerate the
Tienes
pace
que
of the
ir
game for
dándole
those
la
who want
barrita
that,
y tal,
without
ir
having to compromise
esquivando.
on PoE2's more visceral combat systems. Okay,
Te pueden tirar
so that's the
y
new
no poder
extensions to the
correr.
campaign, but there's a whole giant league to play through as well. I'll leave that to Mark to talk about later. And that's because what I want to talk about now is the new stuff for your characters.
Retomaros, enlaza.
And probably one of the
Ahí lo
biggest new
tienes,
systems
para
here
enlazar.
is with the support gems. Now,
Vale,
support gems are one of the most
support gems.
interesting
Vamos a ver qué
elements
han
to creating a
cambiado.
build. They're what enables so many interesting mechanics and different ways to play. But PoE2's support gem system has just never been quite right. One of the major issues is the limitation of only having one support gem of each type on your
Claro,
character.
haremos solo podíamos
We didn't
tener
want builds to just
una
become
support
using
gem
the
de
same
cada
5
tipo.
most powerful supports in every skill. The problem with this design, though, is that it's actually working against using multiple skills in your build. If you can only use each support gem on one skill, it means that you're encouraged to go all in on that one ability. And we want to encourage you to combo your abilities, something needed to change. So with that in mind, we've removed the restriction of having one of each support gem per character. You can now use as many copies as you like.
Ahora puedes usar
This
tantas
should
copias de la
drastically
support
increase the
como
amount of possible
quieras.
builds and increase the amount of skill diversity.
Básicamente ahora no tenemos restricción, ¿vale? Queremos usar una
There are
support
a
gem,
lot of
podemos
potential
usarla
builds that suffered from the
en
previous
todas las
restriction.
skill gen que tenemos.
For example, a poison build
Yo lo dije,
previously
pero no,
couldn't add
era
poison to more than one
súper
skill.
importante.
They couldn't use stacking
También se
poison
lleva
on more than one
pidiendo
skill
desde el día
either.
1 esto,
This
¿eh?
severely limited your ability to
Porque
combo with
limitaba
anything
mucho
outside of the
ciertos builds.
specifically designed poison archetype, but now you can. Many utility skills previously couldn't scale to endgame because the supports that would make them scale were more useful to use in other skills. You would never speed up killing Palm with martial tempo when you would much rather use it on your primary skill instead. There are more examples like this all over the place. In addition to that, though, we thought there wasn't enough feeling of progression in the supports
Brutality
as you
1,
went through the game.
Brutality 2.
There were
Vale, lo
only
que han
3
hecho.
tiers of supports, and many
Algunas
of the
no
most
escalaban
important
tanto
ones
en
were given
in-game
out at
porque
tier
no querían
1.
que fueran tan
Also, there
poderosos
were no
desde el
strict
principio.
upgrades, meaning that upgrading supports when you
Entonces
ran out of
han
sockets
creado
required quite a lot of thinking.
Para que cuando tú avances
In order to solve these
de...
issues, we now
Cuando
also have
llegues
multiple
más
levels of many
adelante, te
supports as you go
encuentres
through
la
the game.
misma gema que tenías
For
al
example,
principio, pero
double
mucho
barrel
mejor.
support gives you an extra bolt, but at the cost of 30% less reload speed. At tier 2, the penalty gets lowered to 20%. But then at tier 3, the support gem gets something new. It now reloads
Entonces
automatically
cada
when you
vez
heavy
es
stun an
mejor
enemy.
la base de la gema.
In some cases, the highest
Por
tiers
tanto,
might work a
escala
little
mejor en
differently, and you'll have
in-game.
to decide if you like the upgrade or not, depending on your build. For example, rapid casting. The first couple of levels gives 15, then 20% increased cast speed. But then at Tier 3, it changes to a new approach.
Actual, pues,
For
un
each different
limitado.
spell you cast in the last 8 seconds, you get 10% increased cast speed, which could be a pretty big bonus if you use a lot of different spells. So that's pretty good for upgrades through the campaign, but we wanted to add a little more spice to the endgame for supports too. And that's where our new system, lineage supports, comes in. You can think of these like unique items, but for supports. There are supports that are only available at endgame, but they're much more powerful.
Linajes, ¿no?
Like Ratha's Assault. It's an upgraded version of Double Barrel that reloads your skill as you dodge roll, as well as increasing the number of bolts it can hold. But it does mean that it's the only way you can reload the skill now. Now, unlike regular supports, you can't find these through the uncut support gem. Just like unique items, many of these can be found from specific bosses. And there's a ton in the regular drop pool too.
Proyectiles adicionales. Son un nuevo tipo de
Some of them are
support,
fairly rare.
básicamente. Dialas de
Others
sal,
fairly common.
medallas de Arlington.
Some of them are build defining.
Bueno, esto cuando salga el parche lo leéis con calma.
Others are just straight up
Que ahora mismo
power.
nos está enseñando muchas imágenes, muchos datos numéricos, pero eso hay que
All in
mirarlo
all,
con
there's
calma.
around 40 lineage supports being added throughout the endgame.
Vale,
So there's a
que
lot of
muchos.
power to find out there. Now, the new support gems are certainly going to
como
open up a
40.
lot of builds, but of course we have a huge range of improvements to individual character classes as well. As well as adding new skills, we had a big focus on buffing existing skills so that they can scale well into the endgame. There's a huge amount to cover
Vale,
here,
cambios
so we're not going to
habilidades.
discuss everything. We're just going to quick fire through some of the coolest changes. We wanted to make cold a more useful element on the Ranger, so we've expanded the cold tools available. As well as increasing its
Vale, que
range,
solo van a
Escape
destacar
Shot now
ciertas
creates
cosas.
fragments of ice whenever it hits the ground. These fragments explode
La
after a
Ranger
short
más
time,
habilidades
making
de
the skill
frío.
better for killing groups of enemies. But not only that, we added an ice
Pero
fragment
la
support
esquiva de
that
la
creates
barra
more of
espaciadora
them when killing
desaparecerá
frozen
por el
enemies.
sprint. No, se la ha visto rodar también.
And a new buff skill called Ice Tipped Arrows that
Han
allows
dicho
all
que la
your
barra
arrows to create
espaciadora
ice
era más
fragments.
bien para esquivar ciertas cosas, creo que era.
This already gives Claire to
Para
rangers
que
wanting to use
pudiéramos
ice.
seguir
But to
sprintando.
take further
Algo así
advantage
ha
of the
dicho.
ice fragments, Freezing Salvo has been upgraded to shoot
Para
additional
correr,
cold
rodar y
arrows
mantener
towards
pulsado,
every
algo así.
fragment, giving you a nuke-like ability.
Simplemente lo que ha dicho de la barra
We've also
espaciadora es
modified
que eso, que
Snipe
te
to
pueden
consume
tirar,
frozen from
entonces tienes que
enemies, dealing a
esquivar a
huge
la
amount more
gente y
damage,
tal, a los bichos,
giving you a nice ice single target
para que
option.
puedas seguir corriendo.
And something you might notice about this is that the bonus is a lot higher against bosses. This is actually a change you'll see throughout the entire game. Since it's a lot harder to freeze a boss, you should get a bigger reward for it. Another theme you'll see throughout the game is making movement feel better. Toxic Growth is a skill that was pretty cool, but a bit annoying to use with the jump that it had. Now Toxic Growth is a range skill, so you can spam it more easily. And we've also added a new poison skill while we were at it, called Toxic Domain. It creates a small area around you that makes all your attacks create toxic growth pustules, but attached to monsters.
Mientras estés en el Bloom, tienes incrementado el coste de las
Another skill that was
habilidades.
annoying to use was Electrocuting Arrow. It's now just a regular arrow,
Flechitas
making it easy to
eléctricas.
use. But it also means you can support it with
Bonita
projectile
se ve,
supports.
esta.
And it now also has area of effect, making it a tool for more
Ah,
than
que
just
una
single
cosa no se la
target,
quita la otra, aunque a
allowing
mí
it to
Poe 2
scale
me
into the
parece que
endgame.
está en un estado muy verde en cuanto a jugabilidad y tal.
We also
Visualmente
added a new
preciosas las
spirit
habilidades.
reservation called Mirage Archer. This is a meta skill that allows you to create shadowy clones of yourself
Mirage
to use a skill
Archer.
of your choice. Of course, one of the other big problems the Ranger had was survivability. Evasion was the weakest of the 3 defenses, and we wanted
Hablando
to
de
change that.
supervivencia,
Currently, evasion doesn't evade all types of hits in the game, so you're still vulnerable to things like
la evasión
slams or
era más débil de
unblockable
las 3
attacks.
defensas y queríamos cambiarlo.
To make evasion characters more tanky, we're adding a new mechanic called Deflect.
¿Vale? Nueva
Unlike
mecánica,
evasion,
deflect.
Deflect works on everything.
Provee
And if
una
you successfully
probabilidad
deflect the hit, you
de
take
deflect
40% less
damage de
damage.
hits, previniendo el 40%
Items can now
del
give you
daño
a
de
mod
esos
that gives you some
golpes
amount of
diarios que
deflection
ellos
based on your
infligen.
evasion.
La probabilidad exacta de deflect también depende
And there's a bunch of it
de...
available on the passive tree too.
¿Vale?
Deflection
Puntitos
is
sobre
rolled in
deflect.
addition to evasion, so this is an upgrade for regular hits too.
Vale, está pensado para usar a personajes
And
que van
unlike
evasión.
evasion, there's no maximum chance. You can reach 100% deflect against all hits if you spec into it enough. Of course, this is a buff that helps all Dex characters, so the Mercenary and the Monk,
Lo que hace
but
es
especially the
desviar los
Huntress, are
golpes
seeing
del
big defense
enemigo.
boosts from this as well. Speaking of defensive mechanics, let's talk about block and parry.
Hablando de más cositas de...
Now, one of the big concerns on the release of the Huntress was
el
parry
parry,
feeling
¿vale?
unreliable.
Bloqueo.
One of the big reasons for this is there's a lot of hits that are not blockable, and thus not parryable either. So a huge balance change we're making is that now everything is blockable, except for specifically unblockable red flash skills that bosses use.
Todo se puede bloquear excepto el destello rojo imbloqueable que usan los bosses. Todo lo demás se puede bloquear
ahora. To
ahora.
make block and parry nicer to use, you now also move faster
Que
than
antes había
before while
muchas
using
cosas
these
que no
abilities.
podíamos bloquear.
This is a
Que
massive
tenías que
buff
esquivar
to
sí o
passive
sí.
block as well. So to counter that, we did have to lower the max passive block a
Y ahora
bit,
además nos movemos
but
más
overall
rápido.
you should feel
Pero
much
tenemos que
safer.
correr. Eso, más poder bloquear más cosas.
Fire
Vale.
skills on the warrior were not really cutting the mustard, so we decided we needed to upgrade a bunch of them, but also add some more as well. Let's start with a buff.
Habilidades
Volcanic
para
Fissure
el
now
guerrero.
branches into multiple fissures, giving it much more clearing potential.
Volcanic Fissure.
We've also added a new skill called Forge Hammer. This skill throws a molten hammer that does a slam at a distance. You can recall the hammer back by
Vale.
using the skill again if you
Lanzas un
want.
martillito
But
de
the cooler thing
fuego.
to do is to use a war cry now.
Esta es como la de
Using
la
the war cry
Seafood.
makes the hammer explode, making a bunch of volcanic fissures around.
Entonces en este juego las builds de melee se respetan, ¿no?
Volcanic
Sí.
fissures re-trigger when you slam them, so it's a great skill to make a flaming arena to fight a boss. We also buffed Perfect Strike to have a much larger area
Ya
of
sabéis
effect
que las habilidades de fuego a mí me
and changed
encantan.
Molten Blast
Son
to
mis
not always
favoritas
force you to move
siempre.
forward. Trust me, it feels a lot better to use now. The skill now
Bueno,
has
ya lo habéis
massively
visto, esta
boosted
liga
chance to
por uno
ignite
me he
monsters as
hecho
well.
habilidad de fuego también.
And you're going to want to ignite monsters due to a new glory skill called Ancestral Cry. Ancestral Cry charges up with glory by
Ancestral
igniting
Cry.
monsters, invoking King Kaum's favor. After you do, use it to channel Kaum's ancestral power. Every attack will be ancestrally boosted with fire. Your very steps will explode, triggering volcanic fissures, and molten balls will erupt from your attacks. Warrior shield skills were another area we wanted to improve. Now that we've got sprint, we actually don't need to have a cooldown on shield charge anymore.
Quieren
And
mejorar
now
esas
also
habilidades
does more
como
damage the
esta.
further away you are
Ahora que
when you
tenemos
use it.
sprint ya no necesitamos un tiempo de reutilización para la carga de escudo. Ahora también
Shield
hace más
wall got
daño. Cuanto más lejos
significantly
estés, cuando
upgraded
lo
AoE.
uses, hace más daño.
Also, you can shield charge right through it to trigger all the walls. We also added a new shield war cry.
Mejora OE para el
Fortifying
Shield
Cry gives you a
Wall.
defensive buff, but it also builds up charge on your shield that empowers your other shield skills.
Nuevo
And Magma
escudo.
Barrier now doesn't require timing in order to
Magma
use.
Barrier.
Just wait for your shield to charge up and block.
Incrementa tu probabilidad de bloqueo pasivamente.
Seismic Cry now stuns enemies that are primed for stun.
Seismic Crime.
And we changed the
Como
Sundered
veis, muchas
interaction with
cosas
Armor
para el
Break.
Warrior,
It now also gives a Sundered Armor debuff that makes enemies take 40% extra physical damage.
Para el Warrior, para la Cazadora
Great for
también.
bosses. Ancestral Warrior Totem has undergone some pretty significant changes too. We wanted the skill to feel more like using an ultimate. That summoning an ancestor to fight for you was a big deal. So we've changed this totem to require 3 endurance charges to summon,
Ancestral
and
Warrior
massively
Totem.
buffed its damage. It also now scales with
Hemos
your weapon
cambiado
damage
el
too.
tótem para que requiera.
Since there's no limit anymore, if you build around generating endurance
No me
charges,
enteramos
you can
bien.
summon an entire forest of totems. In order to make that easier, we added some new sources
Lo
of
veremos en
endurance
detalle,
charges.
pues ahora al parecer,
There's now
no,
a support
no
to
os
make Perfect
preocupéis.
Strike generate charges,
Y ahora que
and a
son
support
muchos
for
datos de
generating
golpe.
endurance charges from heavy stuns as well. Speaking of totems, we wanted to upgrade the Warbringer. Among the other changes we've made to this class, Answered Call now gives an extra
Ooh.
totem, and the spirits have just been generally buffed in many ways. Use it with your limitless ancestral warrior forest to make an army of
Modifican la
Karui that would make
ascendencia.
Tukahama proud. We've also merged the Great Wolf Howl and Warcaller's Bellow support, so that you can get all the benefits with 1 point. And Encased in Jade no longer removes the Jade when getting hit, making it a much better defense. Next up, let's talk about accuracy. Accuracy was always intended to be something that warriors didn't need to care about very much so long as they're in close combat. But unfortunately, that's not currently the case. This was particularly annoying with skills like Bone Shatter, which you certainly don't want to mess with. So we significantly buffed your chance to hit at close ranges when you don't have much accuracy.
Vale, que
Warriors shouldn't require any
falta
accuracy investment in order to hit with close range attacks
mejoritas
now.
que den accuracy, que den puntería a los guerreros, que se
We
supone
also
que si
wanted
vas
to
a
improve
melee no te
armor.
hace falta,
And one
pero
of the
que no es
major
la realidad hoy
weaknesses
en
of
día,
armor
que
is the inability to defend
muchas
against
habilidades de
elemental
guerrero
damage.
que no van a melee.
In order to mitigate this, we're adding a lot more of the stat that allows your armor to defend against elemental damage. It's now available on items and in a lot more places on the passive tree. One of the most important improvements we've made in 030 is to declunk the action and flow of shooting crossbows. You can now reload crossbows without any movement penalty. But not only that, all skills that can
Disminuye,
be used while moving
nerfea un
now slow you
poquito
for a
el
shorter
tema de las
amount of time.
ballestas, que era un poquito lo
This
más
change
roto que
benefits
había.
everyone, not just crossbow skills. With both
O
of
una
these
de las
changes
cosas
put
más rotas
together,
que había.
the run and gun playstyle feels much better. It's hard to explain how important this change is for the feel of the class. The Mercenary is also a good chance to talk about how we're rebalancing to make comboing skills much better. Take Shock, for example. It buffs damage and lasts 4 seconds right now, but that isn't really giving you enough time to take advantage of it. If you're going to add a lightning skill into a build that otherwise wouldn't use one, we need to make mechanics like this much better. To have increased shock duration on monsters to last 8 seconds. And skills like Plasma Blast, which are intended to be good at shocking enemies, now increase the damage bonus by a lot more. You'll find changes like this all around the game. Chill now lasts 8 seconds, giving you more of a reason to weave in cold damage. Freezing skills are better at freezing. Burning skills need to cause burns that last longer. By making skills like Permafrost Bolts and Incendiary Shot double down on how they're supposed to be used, it makes using them in your build alongside other skills much more likely. We're also making sure to buff specific combos too. The freeze explosions from frag rounds now chain to nearby enemies. And using high velocity rounds with armor break will now fragment the opponent's armor. This causes monsters to take a portion of high velocity rounds damage with every subsequent hit, even tiny pellets. So that means following it with a shotgun blast is way more effective. Now there's a lot more buffs to crossbow skills, but for now I'm just going to talk about the new one we added, the Mortar Cannon. This one lets you socket any grenade skill, and using it will summon a cannon which loads and then fires the grenade you choose.
Permite usar cualquier habilidad de granada y al usarla invocarás un cañón que se carga y luego dispara la granada que hayas elegido.
They were just not very good, so we're doing a big upgrade to them. They now last longer, don't disappear when moving out of them, and we removed the Valor mechanic. They now just give a much more consistent and stronger buff.
No desaparecen al salir de ella. Ahora se mete un resultado diferente, ¿no?
On which one of the main focuses was making various minion types more useful to use together. Melee minions in particular were just not that great compared to ranged ones. As a starting point, we just straight up removed the requirement for minions to have accuracy. Attack minions now always hit, which makes them way better. Brutes got some good numeric buffs, but we also added a new command skill where they do a war cry that intimidates enemies and detonates any frozen monsters and allies around you in a big cold explosion. We've also changed the Frost Mage's command skill to an ability that adds ice armor to your other minions, adding a layer of defense. And it makes them deal cold damage back to the attacker as well. The ice armor also makes the minion count as frozen, so the Brute's Warcry can detonate them too. Unearth was changed to work on corpses of your dead skeletons, allowing you to summon the minions more easily in boss fights. And they also got a new jump ability, allowing them to get into combat faster. Grey's Spectre was also feeling pretty weak for the spirit cost they have. To be honest, we were a little afraid of these when we first balanced them. We've both decreased the spirit cost for a large range of monsters and have significantly increased Spectre damage too. They should feel a lot more impactful. There's also a lot of new spellcaster weapons with newer cult skills. But I'll just talk about one of them that I thought was particularly cool. The Reaping Staff is actually a wicked scythe that gives you a new ability called Reap. When an enemy is low in life, you can dash forward and rake enemies with the scythe to cull them instantly, healing you. You can also inflict critical weakness on enemies too. Now, there's a lot of balance changes in the Witch's Ascendancy classes, but I'll just talk about 2 of them for now. On the Blood Mage, you were previously required to spend your first points on Sanguimancy, which really was supposed to be the downside for being able to access the powerful abilities on the rest of the class. In order to make picking the Blood Mage a better early option, we made Sanguimancy free, unlocking the power of the rest of the class immediately. On the Infernalist, the Demon form wasn't something people were really using because you lost your weapon stats while transformed.
Había gente en el foro quejándose de que tuvieran que empezar de nuevo el juego, que estuviera todo el contenido nuevo también en estándar. Porque eso, porque no están acostumbrados a juegos por temporadas. Vienen de otros juegos y no están acostumbrados a jugar por ligas y que se refresque la economía y se refresque todo. Entonces, que no querían
Windblast
eso.
had the purpose of building up to dazing an enemy, but dazing just wasn't worth all that effort. Now it just dazes on hit, meaning a single Wind Blast will make all your skills stun enemies more easily. Following up with Vaulting Impact on a dazed enemy previously did a bunch of stun. Now it allows you to break your enemy's stance. When their stance is broken, following up with a fast attack will do way more damage. A cool build that certain people always enjoyed in PoE1 was hand-to-hand combat. But until now, we just didn't have a real way to make it viable.
Pero esto es Poe, sí, pero es
Well,
que
that
la
changes
gente
now.
no sabía lo que
The
es
monk,
Poe
as
hasta
a
hace
true
poco.
martial artist,
Hay
now
mucha
has the
gente
ability to
que ha
learn the
llegado
hollow
nueva
palm
a Poe
technique,
gracias a
a
Poe 2.
keystone that lets you use all
Entonces,
quarterstaff
claro, no
skills
estaba
while
acostumbrado.
unarmed.
Que
All
jueguen
quarterstaff
estándar y ponen
attacks
un
now
mirror
have a
por
special
todos lados.
unarmed version, and you get further bonuses to all your attacks from stacking energy shield and evasion on your character. A new keystone we also added to the monk section of the tree is
Venga,
Walker
otras
of the
keystones.
Wilds. This changes mana leech to work with elemental
Mana Leaf
damage instead
recuperado
of physical,
basado en los tipos de daño
which is
elemental
pretty
en vez de
useful for all
daño
those elemental
físico.
attacks the monk has, but it works well for the ranger too.
¿Cómo se ve el nuevo
Now,
parche?
one of the
A
least
ver,
used ascendancy classes in the game is
sigue
the
estando en
Acolyte of
estado
True
verde,
Rule.
pero han
So
entrado
we knew
cosas
we needed to make some
interesantes
changes
como la
here.
posibilidad de
One of the key
correr,
things we had to
¿vale?
do
Ya no
was make the
necesitamos
chaos
habilidades de
damage that the
movimiento
Acolyte
porque
can do much more
corremos
useful.
directamente.
So we've added a new skill allowing chaos
Cambios en
damage to
la support,
ignite,
podemos
shock,
usar la
chill,
misma support en
and
diferentes
freeze,
sitios.
embracing the elemental
Parece que
prowess
la
of the monk in a
liga,
truly
bueno,
chaotic
tenemos el
fashion.
acto 4 también.
In addition, he can make
Han
all of his
metido, en
chaos
vez
damage
de
leech,
repetir los actos otra vez en
and we've
Cruel,
buffed
han
into the
metido
breach
como
and
unos
embraced
3
the
mini
darkness
actos
by
que
moving
luego
the effects of the
desaparecerán
4-point
cuando
nodes
estén
into the
todos los
base
actos
skills.
completos. Pero bueno, hay cositas interesantes, ¿vale? La verdad
He
que
also gains a new
ni
notable,
tan mal lo que nos
Grasp
han
of
ido
the Void,
enseñando.
which leaves void
Ahora
illusions
nos está
behind you as
enseñando
you
un
dodge
poquito
roll.
todos los
If
cambios
they kill, they do
a,
massive explosions
a
of
tema de
darkness, dealing
ascendencias.
damage to everything in sight.
Vender ítem offline, yo creo que eso va a
Let's
ser lo
talk about
mejor, todavía no ha
sorceress
salido,
skills.
por eso no he querido hacer
One of
spoilers,
the things we wanted to
ahora
improve
cuando
on the
salga
sword
pues
is the
ya
ability to use
veremos,
multiple
¿no?
elements
Pero sí,
together
otra
more
cosa que han
effectively.
comentado al principio
Now,
es que
this
van a
might seem
hablar
small,
de
but
poder
one of the
vender
things pushing you towards
asíncronamente
using a
sin que la
single
otra
element
persona
is
esté
debuffs like
conectada.
elemental curses, which lower resistances of a
Sí
single
que salió al
element.
principio, pero el
In
resumen
order
de
to
lo que
fix
se iba a
that,
hablar,
made quite a lot of game-wide changes to these kinds of mechanics to broaden what they apply to.
no se ha visto
So, for
todavía.
example, there's no longer 3 curses for fire, ice, and lightning. Instead, there's just a single curse that buffs all 3 at the same time. And things like Frostbomb, which gave you cold exposure, now give elemental exposure. You can use it to buff any of your other skills. We also wanted to make switching between different weapon sets
Eso
smoother,
podrá
so you
implementar
can
el
use
juego
different
con el
elements of
trade
stage
online,
more
seguramente.
effectively. To do
Todo lo
that,
que
we've removed the
integran
weapon switch
de
time.
ese
It
nivel
now
en
happens
Poe 2
instantly.
suele estar en Poe
This
1
applies
luego.
game-wide too.
Seguramente lo prueben aquí
Now, we
y si
didn't just want to
funciona
stop
bien lo
there.
lleven a Poe 1.
We wanted to add some specific mechanics that work between different elements, and that's where elemental infusions come in.
Pero bueno, que lo prueben primero en Poe
Certain
2
skills can now drop
y
elemental
me dejen Poe 1
infusions.
tranquilo.
For example, when a frostbomb
Cuando le
explodes, it
funcione
leaves
bien.
behind a cold infusion on the ground. After picking it up, you can spend it on one of any number of different skills to transform how they work. Spark will create a nova of cold-infused projectiles. Ice Nova will leave a chilled area on the ground. And we also added a new low-level skill that fires ice shards. Use it with cold infusion though, and the ice shards
Me
will
gustan
explode.
mucho las habilidades de hielo en Poe 2, ¿eh?
Or with storms now generates
Se
lightning
quedó
infusions when
bugueado.
you cast enough spells near it.
Y si entras a
And that's
Twitch
all
TV
spells,
barra
by the way,
drops,
not just lightning. Once you have
creo
one,
que ahí,
you could
no,
cast a
Twitch
lightning
TV
flame
barra
wall,
invento
which
y
adds
variador.
both
Ahora
fire
te lo
and lightning damage to all the
paso,
projectiles that pass through it.
que no puedo abrir toda la vez.
Or power up Ember Fusillade with lightning, which will generate arcs to nearby enemies as each fireball hits. Or maybe go lightning on lightning with arc. This skill is now a projectile, and by infusing it, you can go full Palpatine.
Aquí. Ahí lo podéis
Get
ver.
fire infusions by blowing up monsters with living bomb. Then use them with Comet to summon a giant fire meteor from the
Sigue sin
sky.
gustarme que no hay una ascendencia
Or use it with
exclusiva de
Firestorm,
Minion.
which transforms it from a small area into a much bigger one. Firestorm is unique in that it can be infused by multiple
Ten
different
en
elements
cuenta
at
que
the same
todavía
time.
faltan ascendencias.
Add an
Nen.
ice infusion to rain down ice at the same time as the fire. And add
De hecho,
lightning to
mucha
add
gente
deadly strikes from
esperaba
the
que
heavens
hoy
into the mix.
saliera una ascendencia nueva, pero pintaba mal
Or
porque
use
no
it
había
with all
ningún
3 to
teaser
generate a
sobre
storm
eso.
that is truly apocalyptic. Cold Snap has been simply turned into Snap. Previously, you could use it to shatter ice, but now it works to detonate all of the different elemental ailments and makes them leave behind infusions.
Bueno, no estoy comentando mucho porque ahora mismo lo que está enseñando
And
es
just
un
like how you
poquito
could
las
previously use it
habilidades
on
que hay,
Frostbolt,
¿vale?
you can now also
Habilidades
use it
nuevas,
on Elder
habilidades
Storms and
revolteadas un
Solo to
poquito,
detonate those
los
as well,
cambios en la
which means you can
ascendencia.
create many infusions at
Lo
once.
leemos en detalle cuando esté el parche y al final la gente
We
que
also
se
have a Spirit
dedica a
Reservation
hacer
skill
guías
and a
pues
support
te
gem to
dirá
help
si es
generate them
viable o
too.
no es viable para hacer una build.
On the passive tree, we've added quite a few new keystones to the sorceress section. Here are a couple of examples. The Black Flame Covenant
Entonces
keystone
más exigente
converts your fire
gráficamente
spells
mismo
to
hardware se
chaos
puede mover
and causes your
bien.
ignites
Se
to deal
supone que es
chaos
más
damage.
exigente, pero mírate los requisitos mínimos
fire spells and ignites will
recomendados
also turn
en
purple.
Steam o en la web de Poe. o mírate vídeos
The
directamente.
ritual cadence keystone
Vale, a
causes
mí
your
me tira
invocation
bien,
skills to trigger
tiene
more
problemas, tiene
times.
bugs de crashes y
It makes them
tal,
trigger
ya me va
periodically
mucho
over a
mejor que
longer
al
duration
principio,
instead
han
of
arreglado
one.
los crashes más
Great for those
graves,
auto-bomber builds.
pero a nivel de rendimiento se
Now, in
siente
addition
bien.
to skill changes, we've added a lot more options for the passive tree for each class. Overall, there are more than 100 new notables on the tree,
Cambios árboles de pasiva.
usually around 20 per class,
Como digo,
along
para el
with
tema del
smaller
hardware yo
clusters as well.
recomiendo siempre poner
Check out the old version.
lo que vosotros
And
usáis
here's the new
seguido
version.
del nombre
It's a
del
lot
juego
more
y
dense
en
and there's
YouTube
more
os suelen
interesting
salir
nodes than
vídeos de
before.
pruebas que hace la gente de oye pues mira
Now, we
con
probably
esa
can't go through too many of these in the
hardware
live stream,
te
so
tira
I'll
en
just show
bajo,
you
te
one
tira
from each
en
class's
alto,
area
te
of the tree.
tira mal,
We tried to be a
te
lot more
tira
thematic
esta
with the new
cantidad de
nodes.
FPS.
So, for example, the Molten One's Gift. It lets the benefit of armor break apply to your
Han
fire
añadido
damage.
muchos puntitos, ¿vale? Y han añadido muchas
Or how
áreas
about Last
temáticas.
Stand, which gives you lots of
Creo que han
stats as
dicho
your
antes
situation becomes
150
more
puntos
and
o
more
así,
desperate.
150 pasivas, no sé, han dicho una cantidad bastante
A
grande.
lot of these have themes
Si
aligning
ya de
with
por
the
sí el
ascendancy
árbol
classes.
asustaba,
Like for
han
the
añadido
Gemling Legionnaire, for
150 puntos
example.
más.
You have crystallized immunities, which makes you immune to different status ailments, depending on which
Pero
support
oye,
gem
que el
color
árbol,
you have socketed
el
the
árbol de
most.
pasivas no te asuste, ¿eh? Que el juego PvE2 es para
Another
novatos.
ascendancy class aligned notable is Sanguimatic Rituals. It allows arcane surges to generate life instead of mana, unlocking that support gem to be used with the Blood Mage Ascendancy. In the Sork area, you'll find these Archon nodes that allow you to convert all of your elemental damage to a specific element. You become a Lightning Archon when you spend enough mana, after which all your skills will be converted to Lightning, and you will do extra Lightning damage as well. We have ones for Cold and Fire too, with different triggers. Here's another cool
Cuando salga
one.
el 1.0 no se
Elemental
parecerá en
Practitioner
nada,
gives
claro.
crit bonuses if you've triggered a skill recently, while
Al
also
final
making
eso ha
crits
entrado
generate
en
more
el
energy for
Reacción en un
triggers.
estado muy verde.
Or maybe you'd
Va a
like the Great
evolucionar mucho
Boar.
antes de que
It
salga
gives
la
you a reason to
1.0.
stack dexterity to make you tougher, giving a bonus to life and stun threshold. Or the Cunning Fox. It straight up gives you 5% quality to all your gems.
Quality skills.
Now, another major change is attribute requirements. We felt like players probably had a few too
Otro
many
cambio,
nodes and
requisito de
attributes and not
atributo.
enough in interesting passives. So we lowered attribute requirements by 25% across the board. That means you'll have more points to
redujeron
spend
los
on interesting
requisitos.
notables rather than just needing to allocate more strength, dex, and int. Now, there are way more changes than just these. These are just some of the cooler ones we wanted to show off. But I'd say that's just
Pero
about
que hay
enough for
más
now.
cambios, pero que
We're
eso
not
lo
even half
veremos en
done
el
yet.
parche, que han destacado
So
lo
I
más
think it's time that we
importante.
talk about the League, the rise of
Pero
the
hay que hablar de la
Abyssal. And to do
mecánica de
that, I'd
liga,
like to hand things over to Mark.
que parecía un reward de hábil.
As you just saw,
básicamente.
even though there are major changes to the campaign for this update, we want to make sure that every time you come back for an expansion, each area feels different with something extra going on. It is really important to make sure your experience when returning between expansions is fresh and filled with new content. And the way we did this was through leagues. Every expansion we make has a league, which not only has a
Bueno,
fresh
está
economy,
explicando lo que son
but
las
also
ligas.
has new content
Para los que
exclusively
estáis aquí ya lo
available in that
sabéis.
league.
Contenido
So,
estándar, lo que está
let's
en el
delve into
core,
the
contenido de
details of
liga,
what Path of Exile
economía
2's
fresca, todo
first
empecé de
official
cero.
league is bringing to the table.
Contenido exclusivo.
The Abyssal are a race that have mastery of forbidden magics and necromancy. They were thought to be extinct,
Una
but
raza
have
que
merely
domina
been
una magia
biding their time
prohibida
underground.
y la
You first encounter
nigromancia.
signs of the Abyssal in Clairfell,
Han estado
where you
viviendo
discover
bajo
that during the
tierra.
night, weaker members of the Undead Legion have been attacking the encampment. The townsfolk require your help to investigate where the monsters are coming from and put a stop to their
Vale,
attacks.
tenemos un nuevo NPC para hablarnos de esto. Morty, me confeso.
As you proceed through Rayclast, you'll find fissures in the earth connected to
Básicamente
larger
sabéis
pits.
con lore,
The
porque nos
monsters
enseñan
normally
el
inhabiting
culema.
the area are being affected by it, harmed by it even,
Fisuras en la
having their
tierra,
souls eaten
conectadas a
to
pozos
strengthen
más
the abyssal
grandes.
underground. As you defeat the monsters, the fissure closes and abyssal emerge,
Básicamente
and
sabéis,
your
o
prey
sea.
killing their food. Once all those
reward
fissures
habis.
have been sealed,
Pero
the
se ve
pit
bonito, se ve muy
activates,
bonito.
and more abyssal pour out. This is where the larger and more dangerous monsters reveal themselves, as hordes of abyssal spew
Mirad
out
el
from the pit
pozo.
to take your soul.
Ya no es una mancha en el suelo negra, es un pozo como
If
tal.
you kill a magic pack, then magic abyssal arise. If you kill a rare, then a rare monster will emerge from the pit, having absorbed some or all of its modifiers for itself. This means the monsters emerging will generally be more
Vale, que
difficult
dependiendo de los monstruos
and
que
more
mates,
rewarding,
te aparecerán
as
unas
each
cosas u
modifier
otras.
gives better rewards. If you are able to kill them all,
Cada
the
modificador
pit will
otorga
seal
mejores
shut.
recompensas.
As each pit is closed, it reveals a potential reward.
Si logras matarlos
Abyssal
a todos,
trolls will rise up out of the
pollo, te iba a
pits,
decir.
allowing you to
El
get some
pozo se
epic loot.
cierra y se revelan recompensas.
Areas often contain many pits, with many fissures, and the amount goes up as you progress through the game, getting more intense. It doesn't stop there. When monster mods are absorbed, they have a chance to become infused with the dark necromancy, transforming them into abyssal modifiers. For example, you defeat this monster with the mana siphoner modifier. Their soul is eaten by the pit, and a rare monster emerges. The mana siphoner modifier has transformed into soul siphoner, and is now amplified in danger and reward.
Y ese el modificador que tenía el monstruo que has matado
Abyssal pits also
aparece
interact
mejorado
with
en el
other
monstruo que
monsters and
sale a
mechanics.
continuación.
If you
Vale.
defeat a rogue exile that's near one, it'll be revived as a Lichborn that has multiple abyssal modifiers. Lichborn exiles
Vale,
even
si
have their own
matas a
unique
un
jewel they can
rogue
drop,
cerca
if you are
de la
lucky enough to
fisura,
encounter and kill
revivirá.
them.
Recordad todo esto de nigromancia y demás, claro,
If an
Kulema, que es
abyss
del
spawns near a
abismo,
boss, killing it will
está
summon
relacionado
a
a Catarina, el
gigantic
Code 1 a nivel
giga
de lore,
larvae
¿vale?
creature.
¡Wow! ¡Qué bicharraco!
Monsters imprisoned in essences near abyssal pits are affected by the abyss too. They will come with an additional new essence item that can be used to craft your items.
Vale, los monstruos de esencia
So,
también se ven
that's your bread and
afectados
butter of the
por
abyssal
la
Kill
fisura.
surface-dwelling monsters, kill the
Que
emerging
afecta
abyssal,
alrededor.
close the fissures, overcome pit encounters, and reap the rewards.
No cerrar las fisuras,
There's a
superar
lot
los
more to this league,
encuentros,
however.
cosechar recompensa.
As you complete abysses, you can find ancient pieces of bone, preserved from the remains of fallen Lichborn.
Vale, unas
These
piezas
are one of the
antiguas.
many rewards for your mission to seal the pits. You can use this on a rare item to imbue it with abyssal magic, adding a special hidden modifier to your item. But how do you reveal it?
¡Son
In
Baylet!
Act 2 of the campaign, you'll encounter a new
¡Son
area.
Baylet!
This area is overrun
Están
by the
adaptando
abyssal
cosas de
and
Poe
the
1
lost.
a Poe 2, pero además tiene sentido, ¿no?
clearing through
Porque
this area,
sabemos
you'll
que
find the Well
Catarina
of
tenía
Souls,
relación
a
con
giant
Kulema, que era
cavity
de
with
Abyss,
massive vortex
pues
of
tenemos
souls
ahí esta
swirling beneath
pequeña unión, ¿no? De ambas temáticas.
So how do you reveal the mods
Pozo
on
de
your
la
abyssal-infused
alma.
items? Obviously, just throw them in, right? Yes, that's exactly
Te
what
vas
you
al
do.
pozo.
Before throwing it in, you are given
Es
the
decir,
option
en
of
Poe
how you
1
want to
acaban de
transform
meter que
it,
con un clic
in the
derecho
form of
puedes
a
hacer
choice
un
of 3
Bale.
different modifiers.
Y aquí nos hacen ir a un pozo
Once you've chosen your
específicamente.
desired
Cuando
mod,
ya ese Quality of
throw it
Life
in,
nos lo han dado en Poe
where it will
1.
absorb the power of the souls,
¿Cuánto
and the
tardarán en
ominous
ponerlo
creature
aquí?
will then retrieve it for you. These modifiers can be ones from the core mod pool,
La
all
criatura
the
va a
way through to
buscarlo.
specialized modifiers
Pedazo de
that cannot normally
animación
appear on items.
Para hacer eso.
During the campaign,
Eso no va a
you
quedar
can use it
así.
as a way to more easily
Tardó
add
demasiado.
useful existing mods. But during the endgame, there is a whole set of new and powerful mods you can add to your items.
Bueno, que serán poderosos y tal,
Like
porque
this
en la
mod for
mecánica de
crossbows
liga habrá
that
cosas
allows you to
guapas.
place an additional ballista totem.
Más
Or
uno
this
a
one
ba-
that
a
adds spirit to your
balistas,
staff.
67 espíritu.
Or this one that allows you to generate more combo with your
Habilidad de un
quarterstaff
combo
skills.
adicional en el hit.
And speaking of endgame, you can also use the system to craft waystones. With a preserved vertebrae fused into your waystones, you can
Puedes
get some
hacer
new
un Bale
modifiers that push
en
difficulty and
waystone.
rewards to new heights.
Está bonita la animación del bicho, pero tarda
Here
demasiado.
are some examples
No
of those
puede ser
mods.
que le demos a hacer un
You
Bale,
always
se
get a
vaya
choice
al
of 3,
bicho. Primero haga la
so you
animación
can
de que lo
avoid
tira al
anything you don't
pozo.
think your
Va
character
al
is
bichito y te lo recupera modificado. No, tío, tarda demasiado.
With this modifier, the natural
O sea,
inhabitants
se
of the
tropiezan
area
con la
are
misma piedra
all
una y
spawned
otra
near
vez. Eso lo acaban de arreglar en Poe 1.
And there
como
are up to
Quality of
9
Life.
additional
Porque vuelven
abyssal
a ser
pits in the
algo
area,
igual de tedioso
making
en
it
Poe
just a
2.
full-on abyss ruckus.
Es muy
Or
bueno
this
si no
one,
rolear
which
otros modos.
causes
Sería
the
con
final
Bale
abyssal
de
pit in the
salte.
area to always result in a boss encounter,
Como lo hemos
be
visto
it
ahora, es
either
un
one
Bale de salte.
underground or one that emerges out. There are dozens of these waystone modifiers in total you can get from this crafting. That covers the new crafting mechanic. So what's left? Well, we talked about how when closing pits you can get abyssal troves, but
Uy, se me
sometimes
traba.
when closing an abyss, you'll reveal an underground cavern that leads to the abyssal depths.
Abyssal Depths, tal cual.
After
Entras a las
jumping into the
profundidades.
depths, you'll find an abyssal city, swarming with legions of the undead. When underground, every single rare
Nada que
abyssal
ver,
enemy
esto sí
will
que
have an
es
abyssal
bonito,
modifier. And at the end of the dungeon, you'll even find a rare with a more powerful Lichborn modifier. Once you're able to defeat this powerful rare, you can also find some nice rewards. Aside from the
Nueva
entire area being
recompensa.
valuable due to the abyssal modifiers on the monsters, it
Que
has
la
its
zona
own
recompensante
specific
por los
drops
propios
too.
bichos.
One example is a set of lineage supports that can rarely be found in
Tiene
these
su propia
depths,
cajita.
like Kurgel's Leash.
Purga Lis.
This
una
support
support.
empowers both you and your minions when you
Ganas
command
un
them,
Holy Might por
granting
5
unholy
segundos.
might to you both.
Habilidad para minions.
Another depth-specific outcome is a
Omen.
set of omen-like items that
Mientras
amplify your
esté activo
abyssal
en tu
crafting.
inventario la siguiente vez que reveles
Additionally,
modificadores.
we're
vamos a
adding
ver.
some new socketables that can drop from the abyssal
Gaze.
depths. Take Ulaman's
Vale.
Gaze, which can be
Según donde
socketed
lo
into your
pongas,
armor.
critical hit slashing
These are a
contra
bit
enemigos
special,
a los
in
que
that
le
you
has
can
hecho
only
parry,
have one equipped at a
más un
time,
accuracy
but
rating
give
por
some
1
pretty
de
powerful
evasión.
effects.
Previene más 3%
Think of them
de
as
efecto
almost a
damage.
unique
Vale.
socketable for your equipment. In the endgame, where you can still find depths, you also start to find a different type of underground chamber. In
Pinto
these
unos nuevos
areas,
soportes,
you'll find an
simplemente.
ancient spire, a
Luego lo
device
comentamos.
being used by commanders of the abyssal factions to plunge Rayclast into a lightless void. Your goal is simple. Kill this commander and destroy the spire.
Bueno, un reward a Abyss, nuevos
There are
bosses.
4 bosses in the
nuevos
Abyss League,
ítems.
and there are some pretty cool uniques available from them. An example is this belt,
Darkness
Enthroned.
Enthroned.
It has 2 sockets. But hold on,
87
socketables don't
incrementado
work
el
on
efecto de
belts.
los ítems soqueteados.
Well, this belt has a special mod
Este ítem
that
gana
allows
bonus
it to
de los
count
ítems
as a different
soqueteados.
slot for the purpose of socketables.
Básicamente
This one,
Darkness
for
Enthroned que
example,
conocemos
counts as a
de Juego.
helmet. I kind of want one that counts as a body armor. I wonder how rare that one is. You can also find this unique jewel, Undying Hate.
Una
This
Timeless
jewel transforms
Jewel.
part of your passive skill tree into an abyssal version, and has
Timeless
multiple
Jewel,
depths.
gente.
The deeper it goes, the more of your passive tree is affected,
En Abyss.
allowing you to fulfill your fantasy of becoming part Abyssal Lich.
Qué bonito el ojo que ha quedado donde ha puesto la
Now, the
Jewel.
last thing that Abyssal commanders can drop is a
Invitación a
finger of the Lich.
Kulemak.
But what use do you
Algo
have with a
espera en el
random
pozo.
undead finger? Well, the next time you return to the Well of Souls, with the finger in your inventory, your character will almost feel compelled. To do what, though, you might ask? To jump in. The items you threw in came
Vale,
back more powerful,
vuelves al
right?
pozo que hemos tenido
So,
acceso
what's
para
the
hacer
worst
los
that could happen?
unveils, pero si
Well,
llevas ese ítem
you
en
will
el
just have to find that
inventario,
one
te
out for
dejarás
yourself.
saltar dentro y enfrentarte por fin
Along
a
with the
ese
introduction
boss.
of Act
Vale.
4 and the interlude, we will be adding 25 new in-game maps.
25 nuevos
These
mapas
maps
de
will contain
in-game.
all the new monsters and bosses we're adding,
Hola,
improving
muy
variety
buenas.
and giving you
Por fin encontré
opportunities to
gustito, me
experience the
alegro.
new boss fights many times. Let's take a look at some examples. Rock Pools is a map where you explore a shallow rocky coastline,
Ahora está enseñando
surrounded by
mapas
coral
nuevos.
and filled with sirens.
A mí mientras no tenga
At the
mucho
end is a
obstáculo,
giant goblin king boss, ready to eat sulfite and squish you like a bug. Holton is an Ezomite township which has seen better days. Explore and clear the township to find a gothic,
municipio,
Reaper-like
pone
boss
Isamita.
with the ability to manipulate
Esomita
storms
sería
and fry you with both lightning
otro
and
idioma.
wither you with chaos.
Laborana,
Given some of the new bosses added are a bit more epic, such as the Act boss and final bosses of each interlude part,
como han añadido
It
voces
would be a
nuevos en los
bit of a
altos, pues
waste to
han
just
hecho
use them
versiones
as
de ellos
regular
en
map
in-game.
bosses.
Básicamente lo que está un poquito comentando, ¿no?
instead, we'll be adding some new mechanics to the Atlas that use them. These start appearing pretty fast into the endgame and will help bridge the gap until you do your pinnacle bosses. In the desert biome, you can encounter a wild sandstorm. 3 maps around the sandstorm contain a device you must activate. Upon doing this, the sandstorm's magic is disrupted, revealing the map inside and allowing you to access it
Gracias
and
por el
find the
follow,
cause.
bienvenidísimo.
This presents itself in the form of a boss, similar to the existing Citadel bosses. This boss is a Faradin Swordmaster, who has been blessed with the power of a time
jefe
gem,
similar a los jefes de la
allowing him to
Ciudad de la
take his swordsmanship to
Resistente.
the next level by replicating himself, maneuvering rapidly,
Príncipe
and severing the
Faridun.
fabric of time itself with his powerful slashes.
Asmadi se llama.
In the water biome, you'll encounter a giant maelstrom, where one of the maps surrounding the water
En el
biome
bioma de agua
connects to it,
encontrarás un
but the
remolino
connection is
gigante.
obscured. You must run the maps nearby, hoping to find a beacon.
Debes hacer
which will
mapas
remove
cercanos
the
con la
maelstrom
esperanza de
and
encontrar
reveal
el
the connection to
acceso a
that
esa
map.
otra zona. Vale.
Another example is this Vaal vault in the mountain biome. But how do we get inside?
Vale, esta otra zona.
Running the adjacent maps to it
Nuevas
will yield
zonas
a key,
especiales, básicamente.
which you can then use to gain access to this vault. Or, you could just trade for one, I guess. Use the key to dispel the powerful force field surrounding it, leading to the Vaal Elite and their rewards inside. These all contain Uber versions of the Act 4 boss, and the bosses at the end of each part of the interlude.
Vale,
And
más
each
versiones
have their
Uber
own
de las
exclusive
versiones
drop
del
pool of
acto
new
4 que ha
lineage
entrado
supports,
nuevo.
which, as Jonathan spoke about earlier, are powerful support gems that modify your skills in pretty crazy ways. As an example of a lineage support which can come from the Faradin Swordmaster mentioned earlier, we have
linaje,
Garo Khan's Resolve,
linaje de Garo
which
Khan.
causes your critical strikes to fork,
Categoría
but
Hit and
requires
Run.
some mobility on your part to properly enable. From the boss sealed in the Vaal Vault, we have Paquate's Pact,
Paquate Pact,
which supports your war
Corrupting
cries,
Crime.
causing them to inflict massive amounts of corrupted blood at the cost of your own life. Additionally, some maps can now spawn summoning circles, a room resembling an Ezomite henge.
Círculos de invocación.
Activating this henge will spawn bosses. It's as simple as that. We'll also be making changes to how affixes and waystones work,
Aparecerán jefes.
as the current
Simplemente.
prefixes equals good, suffixes equals bad iteration isn't quite hitting the mark. We tried something new here in Path of Exile 2, but after seeing the feedback we decided we actually liked what we had in Path of Exile 1 more. Like Path of Exile 1, each affix will now be both difficult and rewarding. Waystone
que sea
mods
más
now grant an
recompensante,
increase to the
saber,
number
¿sí,
of
verdad?
waystones dropped, and
Será
an
difícil y
additional specific
gratificante.
upside attached to it.
¿Será
This means
gratificante
as
de
you roll
verdad?
your map, they will continue to get more difficult and more rewarding, and allow you to customize the difficulty and
More
rewards of your
rewarding, te
maps
cae un
better.
raro en todo el mapa.
For example, the
Nah,
Frostbitten
esa era
mod,
fuera de
which
broma.
causes
Habrá que
enemies to
probarlo,
deal
¿no?
cold damage,
¿Cuánto ha mejorado
also
a nivel
increases
de
the rarity of
recompensa?
items dropped as its upside. Whereas the of Venom suffix modifier, which causes enemies to poison on hit, has the upside of granting increased pack size. Some maps will end up having a lot of rarity, some a lot of pack size,
Algunos mapas
and
terminan
others
teniendo
will just
mucha
have a
rareza,
mixture of
otros mucho
everything.
packsai.
Due to now having more modifiers granting difficulty, we will of course be reducing the difficulty per modifier to account for this.
Un poquito más lo
So,
que vemos en Poe
that's
1,
your
¿no?
atlas, maps,
En
and
cuanto a eso.
waystones. But what about breach, ritual, pinnacle content, and others of the sort? We're making some changes around this too. The first change is that you'll now be able to invest 2 points into your specific
haciendo
League
cambios
Atlas
en el
trees
contenido in-game.
before having to run the pinnacle content. There will be a specific objective for each type of content which grants you those points. For example,
Vale,
in the
la
case
forma de
of
conseguir
Delirium,
los
it's
puntos
simple.
para in-game.
You just need to find and kill one of the bosses in a map, Omniphobia or Kosis. The rest of the points for each content come from the pinnacle content, but we're making some changes to accessibility here too. Currently, access to most pinnacle content requires the same key at the easiest and most difficult version of the content. This creates a negative feeling where at lower difficulties, instead of wanting to run the content, you're often better off just selling it to someone who can run it at maximum difficulty. To address this, each content will now drop splinters,
Petition
which will not
Splinter.
form into singular items. Instead of using the singular combined item in the realm
Vale, han
grid,
dicho que en
you
vez de
can now
hacer
just bring
siempre
your
simulacro, en
splinters.
que todo el mundo quiera hacerlo de la
Upon
manera
inserting the
más
splinters into the realm
fácil
grid,
posible
an
siempre,
interface
¿no? Que haya como categorías.
will appear, allowing you to pick your difficulty, and you'll notice each difficulty has a different entry
Puedes
cost.
completar diferentes
This means if you want to
dificultades.
run easier
Vale.
difficulties, it costs less, which also allows you to run this content much sooner into the endgame.
Vale.
Because these encounters now just require
Cuesta menos
splinters,
hacer
their
dificultades
corresponding
menores,
atlas
cuesta
tree
más
no
hacer
longer affects the
dificultades mayores.
difficulty of them, and has been changed to purely affect the content and maps on the atlas. The Arbiter of Ash works a bit differently. Instead of requiring splinters, he still needs crisis fragments. We now have only 2 difficulties of the Arbiter. The first, requiring the existing fragments obtained from
Vale,
citadels.
switch.
The second, Uber Arbiter, requires calamity fragments. These come from
Vale,
Citadel
unos nuevos
bosses also,
fragmentos para hacer
but
la
only once you've
versión
allocated the
difícil.
maximum number
Sí,
of points
meter
in your
más
boss
fragmentos
atlas
al
tree,
juego, ¿vale?
ensuring those citadels are at their
¿Qué
highest
cosas había
difficulty
spoileado
level.
revelado? Pues todo,
Since
Damaros,
we're
con
talking about
resumen
pinnacle
absolutamente
content,
todo.
we also
Porque la
felt
prensa
that the
tiene acceso
leveling curve in
previo
the
a
late
toda esta
game was a
información.
bit too steep. We've smoothed this out a bit so that it's easier to get to the mid-90s. We've also added some new in-game unique items. Let's take a look at a couple. Thunderfist is a pair of gloves that grants Crackling Palm, a skill which empowers your unarmed attacks, granting the ability to call down the storms themselves on enemies you hit. Put simply, literally every monster you hit with your unarmed skills will be struck by powerful lightning.
Puños eléctricos, me gusta.
Pair this with the aforementioned hollow palm technique to embrace your true unarmed prowess in combat. Another unique we're adding is Hinekura's Sight.
Hinekura.
Equip this amulet to be granted the power of the Mother of
El
Death
amuleto,
herself.
tío. Es el amuleto
This is
de...
reflected by granting you a skill called Foresight. While you have Foresight, your
Futura
dodge roll
paz.
no longer avoids
Hinekura
hits.
observa tu futuro.
But
Es una
instead,
buff.
being hit while dodge rolling restores you to full life and makes you unable to die.
Recuperas la vida por
For a brief
completo.
period
Y no
of time.
puedes morir por un breve
You'll
periodo de
notice
tiempo.
when
En
this
vez de
does
esquivarlo.
occur, a copy of your character appears and takes the full damage. This is you seeing that future, as if you hadn't been
Aparece una
wearing the
copia de tu
amulet.
personaje y recibe todo el daño. Es como ver
Ultimately,
como...
your in-game experience
Cuando
should be more
llevas el amuleto es
streamlined,
como que
with
el
new content
futuro
to
que se
find.
daña
You'll
es
be able
otro.
to
Te
invest in your
separas.
Atlas tree sooner, engage with pinnacle content faster, have less FOMO running said pinnacle content, reach higher
Uy,
levels
me va
easier, and do
colgadísimo,
all of that
No
while
cosa
finding
mía,
many
del
new
Twitter.
chase in-game items. Talking about finding items is one thing,
Crafteo.
but what about crafting them? We've taken a step back and looked at some of our crafting systems to make some notable
Hemos dado un paso
improvements.
atrás y vamos a analizar los
Let's
sistemas
start
de
with
crafting.
essences, which suffered from an issue where the regular
Esencias.
essences were effectively useless and didn't give players the tools or
Que las
excitement
esencias
that a
normales
crafting
eran
system should
inútiles,
provide.
que no le daban al
To
jugador la
alleviate these
herramienta
concerns,
o
essences
emoción
are
que
being
sí que
changed in a
necesitaba.
few ways. Firstly, they're being changed to function like regals and add specific modifiers with
Se
specific
están usando
values,
como sean
meaning you know
regals,
exactly what
¿vale?
you're going to get. We found that
Mejor un
players were
ítem
often
mágico
bottlenecked
raro
by
dándote
regal
una
orbs when
cosa
crafting in the
determinada,
campaign,
¿vale?
so this helps to fill that gap, allowing you to better upgrade your items.
Esto creo que en campaña
For
puede
example,
ayudar, ¿sí?
This lesser essence of flames, which will be able to add a flat amount of fire damage to your magic martial weapons.
De mágico a raro, añadiendo
Secondly,
a
we're
un
adding many
modificador
more tiers.
garantizado.
That lesser essence of flames, for example, has a regular variant and a greater variant too, adding even more fire damage with each upgrade. The intention of this is so that when you find one early on, you don't worry about holding on to it till later to use on a higher level item. You should feel free to use them as they come to get powerful
Que puedas
upgrades during the
usarlas
campaign.
con más frecuencia, las esencias, es su
Lastly,
objetivo.
our highest tier of essences, now
Otro
called
tipo de
perfect
esencias.
essences,
Elimina un
will
modificador
function like a
aleatorio
chaos orb
y
instead of a
añade
regal.
un
So it will
modificador
replace one of
raro
the modifiers on your rare items
y
with the
aumenta un
specified
ítem
mod.
raro con un nuevo modificador
Such as this
garantizado.
perfect
Sí.
essence of
Te elimina un
flames.
aleatorio y te añade
You'll
otro
notice this
modificador.
one doesn't just
Ese
add flat
modificador que
fire
te
damage
añade
like the ones
garantizado.
before
El que
it.
te elimina
The
random.
perfect essences often give something a bit different, with some opportunities to be pretty damn powerful. There are many different essences, each with many tiers, covering many of the more core modifiers you'd want on items early on,
Un
through
poquito
to
intentando
chase
arreglar el
specialized ones
problema
for
que tiene el
in-game.
crafteo de Poe 2 ahora mismo.
Speaking of in-game, we really wanted to expand our crafting options for late in-game crafting projects. You might have noticed that at in-game,
Querían
you
añadir
get
más
way
opciones
too
de
many
crafteo en
transmutes.
game.
Wouldn't it be nice if some of those didn't drop, but instead you got something a little more powerful? At higher levels, you can now
Que cae
find
mucho
Greater
transmutation.
Orb of Transmutation and Perfect Orb of Transmutation.
What?
These can be used on normal items to
En vez de
upgrade them to
transmutation te
magic,
cae un glitter o
ensuring
un
that the
perfect
modifier
transmutation.
generated
Que hacen
is of a
cosas
minimum level.
diferentes.
This is similar to
Wow.
how you find higher tier items on the ground, but for crafting. These
Modificar,
higher tiers will
aumenta un
also
ítem mágico
exist
con
for
un nuevo
Orb of
modificador
Augmentation,
aleatorio o aumenta un ítem
Regal
mágico
Orb,
con un nuevo tal.
Exalted Orb, and Chaos
Perfe
Orb.
de salte,
Meaning
perfect
you can
chaos,
get all of
glitter
the orbs
chaos.
required
Wow.
to take your item from normal
Lo están
rarity to
complicando
a fully
demasiado,
completed
¿eh?
rare with guaranteed high tier mods. On top of these
Pero
new
a ver si
core
con eso
crafting
consiguen que de forma
currencies, we
determinista
wanted to
podamos
make
llegar
sure
a
there are
crear
powerful
ítem
crafting
bueno.
bases to use them on.
Habrá que ver hasta qué
Now in
punto.
endgame, you can start to
¿Y cuánto
find
caen?
exceptional items.
¿Cuánto caen y qué se puede hacer
These
con
are items
ellos?
that drop
El
at
detalle,
normal
porque ahora
rarity
viéndolo así de
and are
carrerilla es
perfect for your
difícil
from-scratch
deciros, esto
crafting
funciona así y
projects.
funciona así. Pero no me da
They
tiempo
can
ni
come
verlo.
with extra quality, up to 30%, or an additional socket to use your crafting socketables in. And yes, they can be corrupted for yet another socket. You can also get exceptional unique items.
Ya tenéis el drop, gente,
To add
por
even
cierto.
further to your crafting arsenal, we've added a whole suite of new omens to ritual content, and removed some of the more unimpactful ones that weren't being used. Some of the new omens include the Omen of the Ancients, which will cause your next Orb of Chance to not destroy the item, but generate a random unique of the same class. Or the Omen of Sanctification, which is my new favorite.
Siente divino, usado un ítem
This will
raro,
cause your
será
next divine orb used on a
santificado.
rare item to re-roll the values of its
Al
modifiers,
aterrizar el valor numérico de sus
allowing it to
modificadores,
exceed the
entonces
normal
multiplica los
minimum and
valores por un
maximum
valor
values,
aleatorio de entre
raising
80
the
y
ceiling on the new
120.
most powerful rare items in the game. This omen will also cause your item to become sanctified. Sanctified items cannot be crafted, just like corrupted ones, so consider
Vale, si
carefully
lo
when you use
santificas es
this.
como si estuviera corrupto el ítem, ya no le vas
Another
a
is
poder
the
hacer más
omen of chaotic
modificaciones.
monsters, which will cause your
Pero a
next
cambio
chaos
consigue
orb to
modificadores más
reroll all
potentes de lo que
modifiers on a
entendía.
waystone, allowing you to fix your
Tu
maps if you
siguiente
get some
caos.
modifiers that are not feasible for your build. Besides these examples, there is a huge variety of new omens for you to discover in your ritual encounters. With the release of Act 4,
El Ginecoral
notably
Lock
taking place in the Cardori archipelago,
permite ver el resultado de
you'll
la
be able
siguiente
to now find
currency
a
al
new
modificar
currency
el
item,
ítem.
Henikora's Lock. Henikora, the Cardori goddess of death, has the power of
Bueno,
foresight
Ginecora's Lock
and is
exactamente
able
como
to see
está en
many
juego.
futures, including the outcome of your next craft.
Lo
So,
pones en el
imbuing
ítem
her lock onto an
y
item gives you that same
puedes
power
ver
too.
qué va a ser la currency con ella.
For example,
Una vez
you'll know
haces
whether or not
cualquier
to
cambio en
use
el
an
ítem,
exalted orb
se
on your
pierde
item,
la posibilidad de
as you will
seguir
know
viéndolo.
exactly what the outcome is. So, with all these new crafting improvements, it's safe to say you're going to be making some epic items, and not necessarily just ones for yourself. So given that,
Pero
it's
yo creo que
time to
Harvard
talk
fue
about a massive one.
diferente, Pintur,
Trade.
hasta cierto punto.
It's finally here.
Esperamos, ahora mismo
The
está muy verde
moment
lo que
we've
están
all
haciendo.
been
Se nota que
waiting
es
for.
experimentación
Fully
y hacer desde cero.
asynchronous trade.
Vale, vamos a ver. Tema
Over
de
the
trade,
years, the
gente.
way players trade with each other in Path of Exile 1
Trade
has morphed from
asíncrono.
using the
Y a lo largo
forums
de los años, pues,
through to the in-game chat,
teníamos que utilizar
all the
las
way through
tiendas,
to
pero al
using the
final
website.
todo trataba de
These
ir al
systems
girao de alguien a
and all their
comprarle algo.
iterations
Y
work
si
for a
estaba
while,
AFK,
but with
pues
each
te cagabas
iteration,
en
new
su
problems
muerto.
eventually reveal themselves. Be it requiring you to be in your hideout too much instead of out there killing monsters, or never getting responses from people
Que
who are
tardábamos
either
mucho
AFK
en poder
or
hacer
just can't be
trades,
bothered.
¿vale? Ya teníamos el currency exchange
In
para
order to
tema de
finally
currency,
solve this,
pero ahora
and this has been a long time coming, we're adding a new system that allows you to buy items from other players without requiring the
tendremos un
seller to be
merchant.
present. They can continue farming, killing monsters, AFK as they please,
Ahí está, Angie te ha
and can
comprado
even
tal
be
cosa.
offline. With the
solo
introduction
vas y
of King's
recoges
March
la
in Act
currency.
4, you will encounter Ange, assistant to Rog in the Meridian Free
Vale,
Traders
en el
Company.
capítulo 4, acto
Over the
4,
last 2
tenemos una
decades or
señora
so,
que nos
since Path of
dejará
Exile 1's storyline,
vender cosas.
Faustus has handed down his knowledge
Vender cosas
and
de manera
expertise to
síncrona,
Ange,
no
and
solo
she
la
is now ready
currency,
to take
sino
over his
también los
business.
ítems, ¿vale?
If you have a hideout unlocked
Vamos a hacer
already,
un mercader
you
donde
can
ponemos las cosas
immediately
a
invite her
vender,
there.
se vende mientras nosotros
If you
hacemos
don't
otras
have a
cosas y
hideout
luego
yet,
solo
you will
recogemos
need to acquire
la
You can
recompensa.
do this by completing a quest to defeat one of the bosses inhabiting an island in Act 4, allowing you then to take a slice of it for yourself, making it your new home and base of operations. Once invited to your hideout, she
Una
will
vez
now
tengas su
serve as
hideout,
operating your currency exchange,
gestionar
but
tienda.
also serve as the figurehead in your new trading empire. So, how does this new system work?
Vale,
In the
con
existing
pestaña,
trade
le pones
system,
el
you would
precio.
list items for sale in premium stash tabs. And then when someone wanted one, you'd have to take it out for yourself and trade it to them. Now, instead of using those, you can give your items to Ange so she can sell them for you. Each item must have a price set. The prices are set using in-game currency items, such as exalted orbs
Tiene
or
que
chaos
seguir
orbs.
yendo al hideout, pero ahora
Once a price is set, other players will
Hablas
be able
con
to find the item by searching for it on the
¿De verdad
trade
tienes que
website.
seguir yendo al GDA?
Once a desired item has been found, you can hit a button,
Wow.
which will instantly teleport your character in-game to their hideout. Then, you can immediately purchase the item. And while there,
Bueno, te
if you
teletransporta
want, browse
instantáneamente,
their other
¿vale?
goods, in case there's a
Te hace
good deal
teleport
someone else
instantáneo.
hasn't yet discovered.
Pero
You'll
bueno, ya
notice
no
that as a
necesitas que la
buyer,
otra
on
persona
top
esté
of the
conectada.
currency
Tú
the seller
hablas
set
con
for
el
the
NPC
price,
que él tiene
it
en su
also costs
GDA.
gold to purchase
Esté
an item,
conectado él o
as
no.
Ange has bills to pay after all. As a
Vale,
seller,
yo le voy a
you'll
vender algo a
immediately receive a
Pinto y
notification
yo
when
lo
an item
pongo en
of
mi
yours is
trade,
sold,
me desconecto,
and can also
pero
see
él
an
va a mi
effect
GDA y
above
lo
Ange in
compra
your
a mi
hideout
NPC y ya
when she has
está.
unclaimed currency. Just go
Es
talk to
parecido a que
her,
estaba en
claim
consola,
your
¿no?
currency, and continue playing at your leisure.
No estoy segura, ¿eh? Me suena por ahí.
As many people already acquired premium stash tabs for the purpose of the trade system, we wanted to add a way for you to convert your existing tabs to merchants tabs, if you want.
Podemos convertir
You can do
pestañas
that here
existentes
on the website, but
en
only if you
pestañas de
purchase those
merchant.
tabs before the release of the Third
Si
Edict.
ya compraste pestaña,
To
la puedes
clarify, the
convertir
existing trade system will remain fully
una
intact,
premium.
so
La
your premium
upgradeas
stash tabs
a
will not lose any of their
merchant.
functionality. We just
Puedes
figured
comprarlo,
people might want to switch
o
over
puedes
to this new system.
Cambiarte,
We expect a
digamos.
lot of feedback around this new system and are
Espero que
looking
la cual
forward to
también,
trying it out with you.
supongo.
As we are not able to
Supongo
test
que todas.
internally with an entire, thriving economy, there will certainly be some
Pero que
kinks to
están
work
haciendo
out.
prueba,
Based on how the system goes,
que
we
seguramente
will
habrá
be
algunos
adding it to
problemas,
Path
pero
of
bueno, que
Exile
hay
1
que
when
probarlo el
ready,
sistema.
so any of the
A ver, el
tabs you
sistema es
purchase
interesante,
will
nos
also
ahorra
be
mucho
usable
tiempo
there
y no
later.
tenemos que esperar que la otra esté
Next up,
AFK o no esté
we're going
AFK.
to be talking about our new
Nuevos
supporter
supporter
packs.
packs. Que para
Today,
eso ha
we're
entrado la
launching two
actualización
new
hoy en
series of
PoE 1,
supporter
porque han entrado
packs.
hace un rato los
The
supporter packs.
Justice and Trathan Executioner packs.
Qué guapo el bicho de la izquierda, ¿no?
Each tier contains the pack's full face value in points, alongside
No tanto
several
para decir
exclusive
take my money, porque
microtransactions.
son demasiado oscuros para mi
As
gusto.
always, the
Pero la bestia se ve
microtransactions in these
bonita.
packs are purely
Como
cosmetic
siempre
and
recordad,
do
estoy
not
diciendo
affect
pues,
your
que los
character's power
cosméticos
or
son solo
progression in
visuales, no
any
te
way.
ofrecen ningún tipo de ventaja en
The
el juego.
Justice
Son solo
series of
cosas
supporter
visuales.
packs contains 6 exclusive microtransactions.
Vale, el primer paso son 6
Claim glory after defeating
cositas.
enemies, or inspire
Un
your
portal
allies
en
by
forma de
calling
banner,
down the banner
bastante
of
poncho,
Justice portal.
hay que decirlo. Bueno,
The
también
Sphinx
si le
Mystic-
va a 10 FPS,
The
pues se me está
hideout
trabando,
decoration will
pero
identify items for you,
decoración
displaying
para
them
el
as it
GDA.
does so. This ancient creature has
Ah,
been presented with many
identifica
items
los
over the
ítems.
eons, so has some strong expressions to make on the quality of
Te
your wares.
identifica los ítems, oye, se ve bonito
Become a
visualmente.
true warrior, worthy of delivering the justice of the
Un
eternal
set
gods,
de armadura.
with the Apostle of Justice armor
No, me
set.
gusta. Le falta RGB para
This
mi
armor
gusto,
set
sí,
also
también.
comes with a matching
Es
back
demasiado
attachment containing
soso.
a set of scales to measure your worth.
El bag attachment
With the
y
Apostle of
finisher
Justice
F.
finisher effect equipped,
Cuando matas a
the
un
Goddess
bicho,
of Justice herself will appear to decide on a verdict for slain unique
viene y
enemies.
lo remata.
Witness as she decides the fate of your slain foes. Will they ascend to be amongst the gods, or be banished to the underworld? The Griffin fledgling pet will be
El
a
pajarraco.
courageous companion as you journey throughout Rayclast.
También un pajarraco con poco color, ya tengo pajarracos
Take your
bonitos.
place in the skies in the plateau of the gods' hideout.
Un
This
gideao,
hideout comes with many different sections for setting up your home or base of operations.
no, tampoco.
In order to
Muy
travel
grande.
between them,
Gideao
you
muy
simply
grande.
just need to walk off the edge.
Puedes
Like a
caminar por las
true eternal
nubes.
god, you can float between the mountains on the
Ay,
clouds
muy
themselves.
soso, muy tal. De repente, ¡ah! las
The
nubes.
Trathan Executioner pack series also contains 6 exclusive microtransactions.
Like por eso de
The
caminar por
Trathan
las nubes.
Executioner finisher effect is
El
a
siguiente
brutal
pack.
display of Trathan might,
Un
crushing
finisher
slain
F.
unique enemies
una
as if they were
pet.
bugs beneath your heel.
Ah, bueno, vamos a finisher F. Caí
As a Trathan
algo
Executioner,
desde arriba.
you're the perfect master for the ever-hungry carrion raptor pet.
El pet,
It has taken a
muy soso
particular
el
liking
pet.
to the taste of other pets, and
El
at your
finisher F
command
estaba
it will
chulo.
swoop
El
down
pet-
and eviscerate them, proceeding to satisfy its hunger by feeding on
Se
their
balancea y
corpse.
destripa bichos, me encanta.
The
Pero
nobles of the
sigue
4
siendo
major
poco
Trathan
RGB.
houses had their mercenaries,
Set de
but
armadura.
if their hired hands became notably irritating,
Temática
they'd have to call in
también
the Trathan
de sangre.
Executioners. You can now embrace their methods and become brutality incarnate with the Cruel Trathan Executioner armor set. The matching Cruel Trathan Executioner cloak will
Sacando la
shroud you in
sangre de
scarlet
abajo.
as you crush the skulls of your
No me
enemies
mata,
and
¿no?
leave a trail of blood behind you as
No
you
por
build
ser
up a kill
hater, ¿eh?
streak. Or use the alternate
no me
variant
llamo.
to simply put a skeleton on your back. Be bathed in
Lleva la
blood
novia a
as
la
you
espalda.
mutilate monsters with the cruel Trathan Executioner character effect.
Vale, efecto
The
cuando vas
swirling
matando.
blood increases in volume as your spree
Mira, el
of
efecto
slaughter
bonito.
continues. Both this effect and the cloak use the same kill streak for tracking how much blood is
Si te
shown.
arremolina más sangre a
After
medida
a
que vas
long and
matando
tiring
más.
day of executions, enjoy a relaxing game of
Goblins
dice
para el
with the
Gideao.
Goblin Gambler's Hideout decoration. They'll definitely be playing
Goblins que
fair,
sirven como
right?
tienda de gambleo para tu
The
Gideao.
Pulverizer
Vale.
map device brings a horrid efficiency to punishing the
Map
damned of
device, el
Trappers.
map device está
Each
chulo,
map you open will execute the
Un
next
poquito oscuro para mi
victims.
gusto. Me falta como algún brillito.
This map device in
como
its
más
true
rollo juego,
ruthlessness
¿no?
tracks
Pero
the
así
total
bonito.
number of monsters killed, your kills per
Cuenta el
second,
tiempo
and
que
your
llevas
largest kill
dentro,
streak up to
lo
the
que has
point of the map
matado.
being completed. This is then displayed on a
Vale.
leaderboard so you can take a measure of you and your friends'
La
violence
racha
at
de
the end of
muertes
each
más
map.
grandes, la vez que has muerto
Additionally, any
tú.
microtransactions from the supporter packs will be made available for use in Path of Exile 1. That's enough about
Y ya
cosmetics.
está, empieza el quad.
Let's get into
Vale,
the
yo el
Q&A.
quad no lo voy a
But
ver,
firstly,
nunca lo veo,
I
ya
want to give
sabéis
a
que ya
huge
luego
thank you
leemos
for
un
your
poquito
ongoing support.
El resumen,
We're just
¿vale?
about to start the
A
Q&A
ver,
with Ziggy.
muto esto un momento. Cositas, a ver, me ha callado un poquito la boca en el sentido de que, a ver, para mí sigue estando en un estado muy verde, Path of Exile 2, pero sí que es verdad que lo que nos han mostrado tiene cositas interesantes, nos han traído un acto nuevo, ya en vez de tener que repetir 3 actos otra vez, pues nos meten 3 mini actos que luego borrarán, pero bueno, que ya nos da algo de novedad y no repetir el mismo durante la campaña. Tenemos como 3 actos ahí tontitos para subir hasta endgame, tenemos el acto 4 con un montón de lore, cosas interesantes que me han gustado, la habilidad de correr, el tema de poder poner la misma support gen en diferentes skills, tema de el trade asíncrono, creo que es un cambio muy grande, ¿vale? Y pues ese reward a Abyss pues puede ser una liga interesante y trae mucho nuevo contenido, ese reward a crafteo, habrá que ver realmente hasta qué nos ofrece ese reward de crafteo. Tengo la sensación de que están intentando reparar el crafting metiendo más y más y más currency. Entonces, no creo que esa sea la manera, porque llegará un punto que volverá a ser muy difícil para gente nueva, porque tienes tantas currencies posibles que no terminas de entender los procesos y todo esto. No sé, lo veo un poco complejo, no sé cómo lo veis vosotros, me lo podéis dejar por aquí. Y para la gente que me está viendo ahora en la retransmisión de YouTube, pues déjamelo aquí abajo en los comentarios. A mí, pues bueno, creo que lo jugaré para pasarme el acto 4 y tal, probaré un poquito las novedades, pero no le daré tanta caña como le doy a PoE 1, porque sigue estando muy verde, pero hay que probar estas cositas nuevas, sobre todo el trade asíncrono, que potencialmente pueda estar más adelante en PoE 1 si funciona bien aquí. Y nada más, muchas gracias por verme por aquí, espero que os haya gustado, si es así dejadme un buen like y comentadme por aquí abajo.